you know it's time. IAfootball is back, and we've got you covered with everything from the biggest hits to the biggest runs, from in-game highlights to post-game breakdowns.
We are here talking any and all high school football.
From day one all the way to the dome, we've got you covered at IAfootball.
IAfootball is back. Your first edition of Talk IA is here. We got a fun day planned. We got a fun week planned, and really we got a fun season planned here at IAfootball, your number one place to cover anything and everything high school football, all 7 classes. We've got you covered. And as you can see today, we're going to be going back and looking at last year's preseason rankings, comparing them to the final poll and how everything turned out. It'll be kind of a fun little opener to tomorrow, where preseason rankings will be dropping on YouTube. All 7 classes, preseason rankings again tomorrow on YouTube. Be sure to tell a friend, tell a teammate, tell a parent, tell a coach. It's going to be a big day across our social channels here. Again, preseason rankings are a big deal. They're on Rockfin right now, so if you're curious and you want to beat us to the punch and beat everyone else to the punch, you can go subscribe to IAfootball on Rockfin. It is the number one way you can support us and what we do. Again, dropping tomorrow, but they're on Rockfin right now. Some stuff this season will only be on Rockfin. Again, so that's the number one way you can support us and what we do. We've also got advertising opportunities available here at IAfootball. So if you want to grow your brand alongside our brand, reach out to us via DM on any social network. You can reach out to me personally too, Cade Nissen, on my social platforms. Love to work with you. Love to help grow your brand alongside ours. Also today, Bobby Bacon, quarterback at Iowa City High, will be joining me for an interview. Excited to get him on and talk to him. Just a really fun day. Really fun week planned. I'll be hopping around to practices here too, getting some content, got some stuff lined up already with that. And I mean, week one's going to be here before you know it, and we're going to be playing games on Friday nights. And there's nothing like Friday nights across the state of Iowa. So super excited to get that going. But we're here today to cover preseason to final rankings from last year, to give you just an idea, of how our rankers did last year, have some fun, and see how they did. I mean, some rankers nailed it. Some classes were totally flipped upside down. So let's take a look. Let's rewind the clock to last year, starting with 8-man. And 8-man, we're starting off with a heater. 8-man was totally backwards compared to the preseason poll. Gladbrook, Rhinebeck, and Central City preseason number 1 and 2. And it ended up being the 2 teams playing for an 8-man state title were both preseason unranked. It's a pretty, it's pretty rare. Even the coaches poll, I know both these teams kind of came out of nowhere and ended up playing for state titles. Obviously, Bishop Garrigan ended up on top over Bedford. Winfield Mount Union and Gladbrook Rhinebeck also ended up making the Dome. Obviously, your preseason number 1 team ended up qualifying for the Unidome. Winfield Mount Union, preseason number 6, ended up making the Unidome. And your preseason number 1 team this year, Remsen St. Mary's, finished 7th. I believe they were the only team all of last year, the only preseason number 1 team across all 7 classes, I should say, that did not make the Unidome last year. So an interesting fact there as we get going. Again, Class A, we can compare this one to 8-man. In Class A, pretty much on the money. Preseason number 1 and 2 ended up playing in the state title. West Hancock, Woodbury Central, and West Hancock obviously ended up winning a thriller. Missed field goal as time expired. Just electric stuff here. Madrid and East Buchanan also ended up making the Dome. Those teams were preseason number 5 and number 6. So right there in the hunt in that top 6. So our Class A ranker was pretty on the money. And West Hancock, your reigning champs, they're going to be your preseason number 1 team heading into this season. Again, tomorrow, the rest of the 15 will be revealed in Class A, as well as all the other classes as we move on to Class 1A. And our Class 1A ranker also right on the money. Grundy Center, MFL Marmac, preseason number 1 and 2, and that is how it shaped up in the state title, with Grundy Center obviously capturing another state title over the Bulldogs. Underwood and Columbus Catholic also both ended up making the Unidome. Underwood preseason number 5, and Columbus Catholic preseason underranked ended up making the Unidome. Really good run by them, and obviously you can see in the green I've got highlight our teams that rose compared to the preseason poll. So a lot of risers in Class 1A last year. We'll see if our Class 1A ranker can nail the state title game yet again tomorrow on IA Sports YouTube. Class 2A, Another class where the state title was nailed down. This time it was flipped. Preseason number one, CLGLR, the Lions versus Van Meter and the Bulldogs. We talked all last year about how, that was a state title that we really thought was going to end up, and that's how it happened. Van Meter obviously ending up on top in an absolute thriller. That was probably the best state title game of all 7. Monticello, obviously preseason number 3, they ended up making the Unidome, and then preseason number 5, Spirit Lake, also ended up making the Unidome. Spirit Lake, also of note, will be your preseason number 1 team in Class 2A as we head into tomorrow before we reveal them all. And I mean, outside of those 4, the 4 that made the Unidome, you can see everybody else is green. West Lyon, Rose in the pool. Kemper from 10 to 6. PCM from 9 to 7. There's a lot of unranked teams that started this preseason that ended up ranked in Class 2A. So 2A was really an interesting story all of last season. It was a cluster trying to find teams to stick inside the top 10. So we're going to see how our Class 2A ranker does this year. Moving on to Class 3A. Had to pull the week 2 poll for this one. Nevertheless, still the same idea here as Williamsburg and Heelan ended up playing for the state title. Williamsburg was number 5 at this time. Heelan, obviously you don't see them. They were unranked at this time of the year. Creston obviously had a really good year last year. Brennan Hayes, Cale Turner and company. They were at number 7 at this point. Solon, also another team way down at number 11. So really the Dome was impossible to tell at this point. Mount Vernon, Humboldt, Harlan, Webster City at that top. None of those 4 teams ended up making it. Class 3A was a really deep class last year. We kind of thought that we didn't have a clear front runner, and obviously it was Williamsburg coming out on top with that phenomenal class that they had. And they are your preseason number 1 team in Class 3A yet again. We'll see if they can defend their title. Moving on to Class 4A, where it was Lewis Central ending up on top, 11-2 for the Titans. They were in the hunt all of last year. Our 4A ranker had them at preseason number 4 right there. Western Dubuque, another team, they were your runner-up last year. They were preseason number 5, so our ranker had that one pretty nailed down. Bondurant Farrar also qualifying for the Unidome, preseason number 3. They were also in the hunt. North Polk really kind of the odd one out here. They were preseason unranked, ended up qualifying for the Unidome. Pretty good stuff by our Class 4A ranker here. Had Xavier preseason number 1. They ended up at the final poll at number 5. Arguably the best team to not make the Unidome. And Lewis Central will be your preseason number 1 team in Class 4A. Kind of the odds-on favorite, I'd have to say at this point, with their quarterback Brady Hetzel coming back in company. But nevertheless, Class 4A has proven to be a wild card. So it'll be exciting to see how our ranker has that shaping out tomorrow for the final top 16 in the preseason. And then Class 5A, Southeast Polk, preseason number 1. They ended up on top 3 in a row for the Rams. They're looking to go for 4 in a row. They scored off with Ankeny in that state title game. Ankeny, they were a wild card, preseason number 11, ended up being the runner-up. And then Dowling Catholic and Valley, both 3 and 4 in the preseason, and they both ended up in the semifinals, falling. So pretty good stuff by our Class 5A ranker. He knows what he's talking about. Again, all 7 rankers did an incredible job. It's just fun to look back at how they did. And, preseason rankings are really tough. We don't know everything. I mean, no one knows everything, but it's fun to build the hype. And again, tomorrow on IA Sports, all 7 classes, the preseason poll will be out, and we'll be posting graphics and we'll be sharing the stuff. So it'll be a fun day, nevertheless. But we're going to move over to our interview with Bobby Bacon, quarterback at Iowa City High. Be sure to stick around. Got some fun stuff planned with him, and we're looking to add more interviews to this preseason. So if you're interested, shoot me a DM. Would love to have you on. And yeah, let's go over to the interview with Bobby Bacon. Welcome back, everybody. Again, first edition of Talk IA this season, and our first guest interview is none other than Bobby Bacon. Now, Bobby, last year, 6-4 for the Little Hawks. You're bringing back the number 1 passer rating in Class 5A among quarterbacks. Really good year overall for you last year. 18 touchdowns, 8 picks, 2,100 yards. 15 yards per completion. You completed at a 67.5% clip. Overall, good year, but what are you looking to improve on heading into a senior year? And it's a big year for Iowa City High.
Yeah, for sure. I would say the biggest thing I want to improve upon is my consistency. You mentioned 8 picks. That's a little too much for me. And then also just taking what the defense gives me, and not forcing anything.
Yeah, no, totally. lately or recently committed to Pitt State. Was that important to get that done, before your senior season? Now you just kind of don't have to worry about that, college commitment stuff. You're just going to kind of focus and play some football. Was that a big part in your decision?
Yeah, I think so. The whole off season, my goal was to commit before the season, and Pittsburgh State came along, and their coaching staff was great. They were great throughout the whole process, and I was just like, this is a good place to be. So.
Yeah, it was a good fit. Yeah, so you get it done before the season, and now you just get to focus on playing football. Speaking of the off season, Bobby, I cover a lot of 7-on-7. I see you playing a ton of 7-on-7. I feel like the sport can sometimes get a bad rap depending on what side you're on. What's the importance to 7-on-7 for you, and how does it help you kind of develop as a quarterback?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it gets a bad rap as well, but I see why. It's not technically football, but it really has helped me develop as a player. I mean, you have 4 seconds to deliver the ball, and sometimes you have to make a little magic happen, and that is a thing that happens in the game. You know what I mean? Like, you have to process things, and then at the end of the day, it is fun. Like, it's fun to meet people, and we had a really good team this year, so that was fun.
I'll say I feel like coaches would rather have you doing something rather than nothing, even though 7-on-7
Exactly.
can get the bad rap. You talk about making magic happen, Bobby. Now, I know this about you. You always seem to be wearing a certain jersey of a certain player when you're playing on 7-on-7. I know when I saw you in Carroll, you were wearing this jersey. Talk about him, and do you kind of model your game after Johnny Football? Where'd that come from? How'd that start? And what's the kind of inspiration there? I'm going to roll this clip too as you're talking. Go ahead, kind of explain that
Yeah.
story.
No, like, I wouldn't say I patterned my game off of Johnny Manziel, 'cause that might not be the best, role model. But um, I think, growing up, I did see some of his crazy clips and like college football 14 type plays, and like I've just always wanted to. I've just always kind of felt like I can uh make just like in the chaos see things and be able to deliver. But no, not the role model.
Yeah.
It really started because in the Ames game, that Johnny Manziel documentary had just came out, and I had my first rushing touchdown, and I went over and started doing the money celebration. It was just fun. Everybody started going crazy, so it was just for fun.
Yeah, it's just the on the field Johnny Manziel, not the off the field. I just always see. I,
Yeah,
I saw
no,
you repping it. I'm
definitely
like,
not awesome.
I was like, I got to get the story behind that because no, I mean that
Yeah.
documentary is really good, and I mean for the on-field stuff and making magic happen, I mean he's second to none when it comes to that. Talking about Iowa City High, I mean looking at last year, you were the projected backup. Obviously, you step in the starting role pretty quickly. Now this offseason, you're kind of the guy. What's the difference between last offseason and this offseason, where you're going to have that leadership role heading into the the full 9 games?
Yeah, so last year, um, in the summer, Drew Larson was still dealing with some injuries like throughout the summer. So I was getting a lot of those reps with the ones going into the year. So that was pretty invaluable, just, kind of feeling like I was the guy. And then that translated, obviously, once I was. And then, this year, I would just say, yeah, like I'm a senior. Like I'm going to be a senior, and I just need to lead. I would say not necessarily like getting on guys all the time, but picking people up, making it fun to play football, because it really is. Like, you know, we have 4 returning offensive linemen. Those guys are great. My job is just to play point guard and keep it fun, I think.
Yeah, you guys return a lot on the line, but really, your skill guys. You guys lost a really good senior class with Miles and Newton and guys like that. Go ahead and give a shout out to some guys who you think could be big weapons for. I don't want to give away your scheme and everything, but who are some guys that have been standing out in the preseason and that you could see having a big year and being some of your core guys to rely on.
Yeah, so Dominic Salibi, uh, he didn't really get to play offense last year. He was going to play running back. And then Miles came in and had a great year. So he'll play some running back, and then he'll also play receiver for us. He's going to be really dynamic. He's been playing a lot of receiver in the offseason. Gabe Eglin is going to step in at running back, and he's been doing a great job. He had a great summer. Ion Harris, Carson Newton's little brother, Chase Newton. Those guys are going to be key contributors, and I really think they're going to have a big year. They've been doing great this summer.
Yeah, returning to the core on the offensive line is always good, though. 4 guys back, always a good thing. You guys play too at one of the more unique venues in Class 5A. I don't know how many grass fields are left in Class 5A, but Bates Field is one of them. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Do you guys feel like that's an advantage when you get a team that's so used to turf and you get them on grass? Is that something that you guys kind of use to your advantage when you can?
Yeah, so we're the last team with grass in 5A.
I thought so.
That's kind of a source of pride, I guess. But yeah, for sure. When it gets wet out there, the balls start getting slippery. It definitely, causes I wouldn't say an advantage. We practice on turf, but it's kind of just like a mindset. You know what I mean? Like that
Right.
feels like home for us, and you come in and you play on grass. Might be a little something different. So.
Yeah, no doubt. And you guys, week 1 last year and now this year, you guys got a pretty tough opponent outside of the state of Iowa in Joliet. Talk about kind of the mentality. I know that's a really good school out of Illinois, and last year didn't go great, but it's an incredible way to test yourself against someone, maybe at your level, a level higher in another state. What's that kind of like? What's that experience and playing a team outside the state of Iowa right away?
Yeah. Joliet Catholic is a really good program for sure. They seem to every year end up somewhere near the state championship, whether they win it or are in it. And they're going to be a really good program, but I think, just every game we go into, we're going in to win, and to dominate. So if we start fast and we just stay on top, that's really the key. And I think we do have a solid chance.
Perfect. Got some fun, quick hitters for you as we wrap up. Got kind of a list of them, so we're gonna do these kind of rapid fire. Top 3 NFL quarterbacks today for you. I'm putting you on the spot here. Top 3 NFL quarterbacks. Go ahead and rank some.
Okay. Rank them. Pat Mahomes number 1. Lamar number 2. CJ Stroud number 3.
Dig it. All right. Would you rather throw a game-winning touchdown as time expires at home or on the road?
On the road.
You like the road? You like the road mentality?
Yeah, a little hostile.
You guys get a lot of trophy games compared to most teams across the state of Iowa. What's your personal favorite trophy game?
The state championship.
Good answer. What is Coach Moore's Coach Moore's most common saying? If you don't got one, that's okay.
Urgency. He always is talking about urgency.
I like it. What's your go-to artist that you're listening to before the game?
I like to say, I listen to Frank Ocean before the game.
Oh, okay.
But I always do, yeah.
That's interesting. All right. Here's a random one. Shout out a teacher at Iowa City whose class you're really enjoying. Or I guess you're in the summer. Who's a teacher at Iowa City you want to shout out that you've enjoyed? Gotta give a shout out.
Lehman.
There you go.
Mr. Lehman, yeah, from accounting.
I like it. All right, final one. One quarterback in the state of Iowa, any class, any school who you enjoy following and keeping up with.
Wow. Maybe Alex Mansky from
Algona.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. Perfect. That was the quick hitters, Bobby. That's all I've got for you. Our first guest on Talk IA. Appreciate you joining me, and good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you for having me.